Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scarish Podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, and this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we're going to talk to you guys about some cool stuff today.
Indeed we are. I'm pretty excited about my topic. It's something that I've danced around a little while.
Yeah, a long while.
A lot of people have suggested this one, and I didn't know too much about it, so I was like, one of these days I'm going to dig into that one. But before I announce what I'm doing, like I'm building this up for some reason, Robin, what are you going to be covering?
I am going to cover Akkorokamui.
Wow.
Akkorokamui.
That's an interesting
It's a
name.
big mouthful of letters.
That's hot. I'm going to be covering the Belmez faces, which anyone who's checked the episode title already knows. I don't know why I do this, where I'm like, I'm going to make this big revelation where literally everyone already knows what I'm covering. So fun stuff. For those of you looking to hear homegrown horrors, you probably already know this, but we've moved all of the homegrown horrors over to our Storytime episodes, which come out each Friday. We also record them live Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Which is the West Coast time at youtube.com/scarish and twitch.tv/scarish podcast. So if you're looking for those, that's where those went. And just a reminder, if you have a story, a ghost story, paranormal, spiritual, funny, coincidence, whatever the case may be, you can email us at storytime@scarish.com. Go to our website, scarish.com, click on contact us, or facebook.com/scarish podcast. At Scarish Pod is our Twitter. At Scarish Podcast is our Instagram. Those are all the ways you can get a hold of us, and we will message you back on every single one of those and say thank you for sending us your story, and we'll read them live on the air. So sooner or later, I should say. We're like 2 months backlog at this point, so it's a good thing to have plenty of stories. So
cool.
We appreciate all of you folks, but that's where those are, and if you want to listen to them, you can go listen to literally any story time that's up right now and listen to some homegrown horrors. So aside from that, we're just going to jump right into our topics, I think, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to go first or am I?
I'll go first because mine's a lot shorter than yours, I think.
Okay. Well, go right ahead and tell us about whatever that word was that you said earlier.
Okay, so this week is going to be like my little cryptid corner, which is kind of bittersweet because I was looking through a whole bunch and the list is just so small now, and I'm just so sad because one day we're going to run out of all these cryptids. And I
feel like there's cryptids that we just sort of pass over because there isn't a lot of background or they're really similar to other creatures.
Right. But I mean, we keep going over like certain ones where it's like, oh yeah, I've seen that one. I'm going to cover it, but I don't know. Like,
I mean, we haven't covered Bigfoot yet. Bigfoot might take up a couple episodes, or we might have to revisit Bigfoot's like the most famous cryptid I've ever heard of, aside from the Loch Ness Monster.
Really?
I mean, that's just what people like. They categorize things. Cryptozoologists categorize things as Bigfoots so they can investigate it, because if it's in the paranormal category, they typicily aren't able to investigate it. So it's like, it's funded. It's just one of the things that we're eventually going to get to. Also, the Tailypo, Tailypo. It's this thing. I've heard this story a million times. It's just not long, and I don't think I can make it into a full topic, so eventually we'll cover that one too. But those are the two cryptids that I have on my list that I always look past. So.
All right, cool. It's good to know.
Tell us about yours.
We are going to try to cover as many cryptids as possible, obviously, and I just love weird, mysterious creatures, so it's
I do too. Yours is very
like
weird and mysterious based off of its name that I cannot pronounce.
We're gonna have to head to Japan for this one, if you couldn't tell.
Had a feeling. Yeah.
So this one is called the Akkorokamui, or the Akkorokamui, and if any of you have ever played like Final Fantasy 11, it's actually a creature you can fight in the game.
Really?
So yeah.
I think a lot of Japanese cryptids make their way into the video game system.
Yeah, but it totally blew my mind because I was just Googling a whole bunch of stuff, and then a lot of Final Fantasy wikis came up, and so I was just like,
hilarious.
I have to do it now because
Go ahead.
You were gonna say since what?
Since I did the one with, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's basically like the turtle person with the dish on their head. Since I did that one, yeah, since I did the Kappa, I'm always just like, I wonder what Pokemon.
Are you a Kappa?
I hate you so much. I wonder which Pokemon this cryptid most represents, because I feel like all the cryptids out there, I know that. Just like each cryptid we do, I'm wondering which one is represented. Because like Bigfoot is that big fucking ape thing that has a ton of hit points. I forget what they're called, but it's like, it's hard to catch those goddamn things. Anyways, get back to your thing.
Okay. So I definitely had to do it because it came up with a Final Fantasy thing, and I love Final Fantasy. I just had to. And then
we're covering chocobos this week.
And then I kept researching more and clicking through more things, and then I came across Naruto things. And I was like, what? Because it's like
Seven-tailed demon?
It's
No
one of the
shit?
tailed beasts.
Wow. I
So-
fucking just pulled that out of my ass. That's all I know about Naruto.
I mean, it's not 7-tailed. I mean, the fox is
Which one is it?
It's 8. There's
It's
8 legs.
Wow. How am I supposed to know that? You
It's an
literally,
Oh.
you haven't told us anything about this thing.
Oh.
And you're like, you're so dumb.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I just realized that you have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's 8. Anyway.
It's either a spider or an octopus, obviously. And you said the word octo before you started laughing, so.
Yeah, so the name Akkorokamui is the Japanese translation of the Ainu name for it, which is Akkorokamui. And I had to go look up what Ainu is because all the websites I went to kept bringing it up again and again, but never actually said like what Ainu really actually is. They're just like in Ainu lore or whatever. And so I was like, okay. And so I went and researched it, and I'm going to tell you what they are.
Please do.
So the Ainu are an ethnic minority in Japan, which I had no idea existed. They primarily reside in Hokkaido, which is the northernmost part of the Japanese islands. It's like up at the tippy top. And they have absolutely delicious Hokkaido cream/ice cream, I hear. Like, that's what people talk about whenever they go to Hokkaido. They're like, oh, you got to try this ice cream. And if any of you guys have actually gone and had this ice cream, please tell us, because I want to know if it's worth it going from Tokyo all the way up to Hokkaido.
Because at some point we're going to go back.
Yep. And anyway, back to the Ainu. These people lived as hunters and gatherers.
I knew that.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So go fuck yourself. These people lived as hunters and gatherers in an otherwise technologically savvy country like Japan, obviously, because everybody's like computers, things like that. These
Gundams.
people, yeah, these people are definitely not those types of people. They live in their small villages. They fish, they hunt, they try to keep as separated from that as possible.
That's cool.
Up until
They're the Japanese Amish. Kind of.
Not really. They're like Alaskans, like
Inuits.
Okay. Yeah, kind of like that. But up until 400 years ago, they were actually the ones that controlled Hokkaido. And they're indigenous to the area. They don't look like your typical Japanese person. They look completely different. I mean, not completely different, but you know what I mean. Their language is radically different, hence the necessary Japanese translation for the name of the cryptid.
So you're looking up the name of this cryptid, which is being translated from a different dialect.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. Okay.
In recent time, they've definitely made large steps towards assimilation to like Japanese culture, but they're still their own people. It's just only a small amount speak Ainu as their native language, like their primary first language.
Is it a dialect? Like, is it derivative of like overall Japanese, or is it
no,
like its own
it's
thing?
it's its own thing.
That's super cool.
It's its own thing. They're like, I read it. It was like they're Asian, like Siberian Asian. They're like from a different part of the country.
Is it
like
weird that when you said Siberian Asian, all I pictured was a giant grizzly bear?
You're so dumb. Anyway, they are not the typical Japanese that you see when you see like pictures of Japan. It's completely different. I guess it's kind of similar to Hawaii in a way, because Hawaii had its own island chain, and they had their own language, and then all these white people brought in all this technology, and then the U.S. adopted it as a state, and now only a few people actually speak Hawaiian, but they're not like white, you know what I mean?
What is amazing, and I didn't even know this until I met you, is that there's such a rich, diverse culture on such a small real estate of land, where it's just so many different people from so many different places that it's just a mashup of languages, and they speak Pidgin because of it.
Yeah.
Which is essentially just English, just rearranged English and like some guttural sounds as well.
What?
Because I've heard so many of your
Guttural
friends speak
sounds?
Pidgin where it's just like, those words don't mean what I know they mean.
What are you
It's
talking about?
Well, then speak some Pidgin for us.
No,
really
I don't
fast.
speak Pidgin.
Okay, well, then don't mock me, because sometimes when you hear it, it's kind of shocking. But still, it's like, it's a mixture of a bunch of different cultures like coming together and having this rough dialect of English, which English speakers don't really recognize, but at the same time you can be trained on. I don't know. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
It's just Pidgin is because Asians all these different cultures had to come together, but they didn't speak each other's language. So they all learned broken English, and it kind of came together, and that's what it became. It's not like making guttural sounds, but it's just...
They get tossed in there sometimes. So, I mean, some of the things, like, okay, like, is it choke? Does that mean a lot?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So sometimes when I hear them say that, I think they're just, like, grunting.
Moving on. Bonus knowledge nugget. The word God is kamui in Ainu and kami in Japanese, and chopsticks are called pasui in Ainu and hashi in Japanese. So there's like certain similarities, but if you read a whole bunch of Ainu, you're like, what am I reading? Because it doesn't, I mean, as someone who's learned to read like basic Japanese, reading Ainu, I'm like, I don't know. These sounds don't go. I'm confused. You know what I mean?
Eyes don't process.
Yeah. So, pretty interesting. I thought that was really cool that I had no idea there was an indigenous group of people that lived in Japan that are technically Japanese but aren't. So I thought that was really cool. Akkorokamui translates roughly to string holding kamui or string holding god. Probably because of its sweet-ass tentacle legs. Because it's an octopus.
Took us this long to get to the fact to confirm that it's an octopus.
I kept saying to Adam all night, like, I'm going to get down with this octopus. I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
I don't remember hearing you say that.
I kept saying octopussy over and over and over again.
Oh, octopussy. You faded out completely to the point where I couldn't
hear
you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love James Bond, so, I mean... That movie, it just always pops into my head. I can't help it. So the legend of this actual creature is that a long time ago in the village of Abuta Toyora, there was a man named Rabunge, and in the nearby mountains, there lived a giant spider named Aragog.
Fuck you. Lies. Aragog is the goddamn spider from Harry Potter.
Yeah, no, not really. But that would be cool, right? If it was just like, oh, hey, BT dubs, Aragog's real. He's like part of our legend.
So much.
But
live the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles known as Kappa.
So, I mean, okay, so if the UK has Hogwarts and the US has Overmorning, what does Asia have?
I don't know.
They
have something, though, because we've seen Asian magic users. So
yeah, they have to have their own school, right? And they teach, like, flying, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but then you're doing like martial arts while doing magic. You want
to hear something shocking?
What?
I've never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I refused to watch wire fighting when I was younger. I'm like, that looks so dumb. I'm not going to watch this movie.
Tangential knowledge nugget. Did you know that legend has it, the Chinese way back in the day were able to like jump high heights and like travel like that? Because their diets or something like that weren't what they are now. I don't know. I grew up and that's what my parents told me about, I don't know, Chinese history and being Asian. You're like, man, yeah, that's cool.
The Chinese people could fly.
Practically, I guess. But maybe
it's gotta have to do with their thetan levels, I'm telling you.
Maybe I'll do an episode on Chinese lore or something like that. You know what I mean? Cool. Because kind of like the Journey to the West thing, where there's this just story that's told over and over and over again about this monkey that learns how to speak and all this stuff.
That's what Dragon Ball is. From, yeah.
If you didn't know, it's like Chinese lore pretty much. But yeah, so maybe I'll do an episode on the lore of Kung Fu or something one day. That'll be pretty different. Anyway, back to the legend. So there lived a giant spider whose actual name was Yoshi Kep. And this spider was huge, like Aragog huge. So his red body stretched over a huge distance, and the spirits cursed Rabunge for some reason. So one day, the spider came down from the mountains and attacked him and the village, and Yoshi Kep went on a destructive rampage and just murdered everyone. And there was so much death that the streets ran with blood, and the villagers prayed to the gods to save them. And the god of the sea, Rapun Kamui, answered their prayers and pulled Yoshi Kep into the bay.
So this is the story. This legend is about giant octopus versus giant spider.
No, this is about how the giant spider becomes the giant octopus.
Oh, so what pulled it? Just the spirit of the sea
Just
pulled it
the
into the sea?
spirit of the god of the sea pulled him into the sea.
This is so much more terrifying than I thought it would be. So a giant spider descended from the mountains and murdered a village, or was in the process of doing it to the point where the streets ran red with blood, and then the spirit of the sea was like, let's make you even more terrifying.
Yeah.
And pulled him into the sea.
Well, so the god of the sea, Akkorokamui, he answered their prayers, pulled him into the bay, and once into the ocean, he transformed into a giant octopus. The spider transformed into a giant octopus and took over control of the bay as its new god. And it's been known as Akkorokamui or Akkorokamui ever since. And when it took over the bay, it began eating things to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And one of the things that it tried to eat was a boat full of fishermen. And within the octopus's stomach, the fishermen called for help. And Akkorokamui, the guy that turned him into an octopus in the first place, was like, hell nah, and poisoned him. So he poisoned him. He was in absolute pain. The fishermen were able to escape. And then Akkorokamui was like, I can learn to use this poison to my advantage. So he learned to use the venom to his advantage and use it to attack its prey.
So again, to recap, now this thing, which is even more terrifying, tries to swallow a whole boat, just swallows these fishermen, and they're like, someone please help us, from inside this thing's belly, which I don't know how anyone heard them. They must have had really good cell phone reception. And the guy
if there were a god out there, they could hear you no matter where you were.
I thought that the person who responded at this point, was the spirit of the sea again.
The god that turned him into an octopus in the first place. So
it poisons the octopus, and this spider turned octopus is now like, he gives up the people then. He's like, all right.
Well, he's in pain, so the fishermen escape.
And then he's like, I'll get you, gadget. And then he turns that poison into his next ability.
Yeah.
This thing's like a Saiyan of something. No, this thing is like Mega Man. Every time he defeats something, he gets that power or gets defeated by that. This is bizarre.
They're in Japan.
This is bizarre and it's terrifying. We keep going.
Okay. So, a sighting in the 1800s by a man named John Batchelor. He wrote a book called The Anui and Their Folklore, or something like that. And Batchelor stated that this monster attacked their ship. And when it attacked their ship, it emitted a dark fluid with a powerful and obnoxious, or not obnoxious, I'm sure it was obnoxious, but powerful and noxious odor, which is presumably that poison.
Right.
So I thought that was super duper cool.
I don't know enough about octopi to know. I mean, I know they can ink you.
Ew, you made me ink.
I do wonder.
You need to watch Nemo again, Finding Nemo.
I don't want to watch it. I really do wonder if there's any octopi whose ink is also poisonous. You know what I mean? There's got to be. I mean, we know there's one. It's this giant, terrifying thing that lives in this bay.
All I know is people make ink, octopus ink, or no, squid ink pasta they make, right?
I think so.
Yeah, not octopus ink. I don't know. Is it bad for you? Who knows? Any nature people out there, let us know. Is octopus
any nature clerics
stuff
listening right now? Hit us up.
Anyway, okay. So, a Japanese fisherman in the 1800s spoke of an account, and this is the English translation of the account, but he saw ahead something huge and red and undulating under the waves.
This sounds hot.
I at first thought my eyes deceived me and that I was merely seeing the reflection of the sun upon the water. But as I approached, I could see that, in fact, it was an enormous monster, 80 meters at least, with large, thick tentacles as big around as a man's torso. The thing fixed me with a huge, staring eye before sinking out of sight into the depths. End quote.
That's terrifying. At least it left him alone. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
80 meters. That's like 240 feet long or round. I don't know. Like, he didn't exactly give the dimensions of the thing, but that's enormous.
It's a long distance. So the Akkorokamui is a creature I can totally understand being legendary in a land where the indigenous people are hunters and fishermen, and they spend a lot of time out in the land. And so these indigenous people must really like tentacles, because this thing is just, that's all it is. With this thing, that's all you get is a whole bunch of effing tentacles. According to legend, it's a giant completely red octopus god. It resides in Hokkaido's Uchiura Bay, also known as Funka Bay or Volcano Bay, because it is surrounded by two mountains or two volcanoes. It had even had sightings in Korea and Thailand. I think I read on one of the sources, which is crazy. The bay is surrounded on three sides by the Oshima Peninsula and then the two volcanoes. So there's Mount Usu and then Mount Komogatake. Yeah. There's a lot of long names, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of names here. I don't know. This is definitely one of those cryptids where it sounds like
real.
Yeah, it sounds very feasible. Like the legends were like thought up, or the legends were based off of some actual attacks that happened. Although the giant spider attacking the town, I pray to God, is made up. But just like the idea that people said for the longest time, like giant squids in particular weren't real until they found them, and then they're like, oh, they are real. And on top of that, the ones that we have caught show that they're in their adolescent development, and they're also enormous already. So
considering this place is surrounded on three sides, it makes me think of like the Loch Ness, where it's something where it's like a little closed off area.
It's just stuck there because it grew too big.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, maybe it's a big giant octopus that just lives super deep down in there.
Yeah. I mean, they always talk about like how these things have to exist because they found so many different versions of the species, but that we probably will never see them because they have to live so deep because they're like accustomed to that temperature and the pressure.
They're rolling in the
because
deep.
I hate you so much because their bodies have developed to be that big. But like what happens if one during its development gets into a body of water that is fairly shallow and then they can't make it back out because of their development? Like
shallow. I don't know how that song
I don't
goes.
know what you're trying to sing.
That in the shallow into the shallows, whatever
No.
that song is with Lady Gaga.
Don't know. Oh, Shallow?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen that movie yet.
I haven't either.
But yeah, it's just one of those things. But octopuses are pretty clever. I feel like they'd be able to find their way pretty much out of anything because they're like super, super smart.
So whenever it appears, it's said that the ocean and sky are tinted red from its sheer size. And supposedly, when completely stretched out, its body covers 1 hectare in area. And for those of you that are wondering, a hectare is 10,000 square meters, or approximately 2.5 acres.
That's fucking huge.
It's huge.
I officially don't believe this anymore. It's far too big. It's terrifying.
It's said to be able to swallow boats and even whales in a single gulp, and any ship sailing too close will undoubtedly be swallowed by this octopus god. And because of this, locals stay away from the sea and sky when it turns red. And when that is, I'm not too sure. I'm like sunset, dusk.
I would just avoid
right?
it at all costs regardless.
Either way, it's understandable for them to have their own version of a water deity, which is cool. And some fishermen even took to carrying scythes on board to defend their boats.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
When people started colonizing the Americas, they used to say that you could take a bucket and attach a rope to it and hang it over the side of a ship and pull it back in, and it would be filled with fish.
That's crazy.
Because those waters hadn't been fished. Like, it was just the natural environment, and it's just like humans hadn't started destroying it yet or like picking it clean. But like, what's so interesting to me is that up until that point, like the wildlife had flourished, and people would report things when they crossed the ocean on these massive journeys about seeing these sea monsters, which realistically
because
were
there's nothing to kill them.
They were most likely stuff like giant versions of animals we know, like giant squids. What's super interesting about that is rather than like fight humans, which I'm sure at one point they're like, let's fuck with this boat, let's fuck with this giant wooden fish. They're like, let's just leave those things alone. And then they just started avoiding humans, which if you're that big, like you think it would be hard to do, you just go down. You know what I mean? Like It's the ocean, for God's sake. So it's like, it's terrifying to think of these things actually existing, especially on this scale.
So although originating from the Ainu culture, it has since seeped into the Shinto religion, becoming its own minor kami or deity.
That's cool.
The Shinto iteration has the creature looking more human-like, which I thought was really interesting, being also known as the long-fingered woman. So they all about them tentacles.
God.
It makes so much sense now. Okay, it's a little different than a creature that would destroy the village. As Akkorokamui, it offers to heal and bestow knowledge. But despite that, it still can, harm if it feels like it, Still, offerings like fish, crab, mollusks, and similar things made to the deity are said to bring healing to the body. In particular, disfigurements and broken limbs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. Which, I mean, it makes sense because of hello the tentacles. So it can self-amputate and regenerate its limbs like any other octopus can.
Wow. Oh, that's cool.
So,
take my strong hand.
so I mean, the whole healing aspect of it makes sense. There are a number of eyewitnesses over the years that are similar to other serpent sightings. So it's like the giant squids and things like that, where a lot of people have seen it. And I mean, people didn't think it was real, but hey, it's real. And it really makes you wonder if there's just some ancient dinosaur, ancient octopus or something. You know what I mean?
Something
it's so
just
cool.
grew too big, and it's smart enough to avoid humans most of the time, but every now and then it shows up and people are like, oh, look at that. The entire ocean is red. Let's go home.
Maybe it's the Meg.
I knew you were going to bring the Meg up at some point. What a turd sandwich that fucking movie was.
Oh, man.
Basically, what we're saying is the people of Japan need Jason Statham.
Yeah, they need you.
I would love if this thing turned out to be real and this thing appeared and it's fucking massive and someone launches Jason Statham at it with a fucking catapult and it just swallows him whole.
Oh,
like,
my
I'd be like,
God.
you know what? I kind
The
of
Meg
like this
wasn't
guy.
that bad. It was bad, but it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. In the immortal words of my friend Scott, it's like the 8th worst movie I've ever seen.
Okay, but yeah, maybe it could be an undiscovered octopus of some sort. Like the little Dumbo octopus, the little cute one with the ears.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
But if you want to check out a shrine dedicated to this octopus god, head on over to Nare Yakushi in the Tako Yakushido in Kyoto, which is just a shrine dedicated to this octopus god.
I kind of want to check it out.
Kyoto's a pretty cool place, lots of temples, stuff like that. So if you guys ever go to Japan, head out, check it out. It's pretty neat. Experience the culture.
Next time we're there, we're going to check this out.
But that is the Akkorokamui, I think. Kamui.
Also known as
Akkorokamui.
terrifying spider octopus. That's what I'll always think of it as.
Eight-legged freaks!
I hate you so. I actually kind of do like that movie, though. Right on. So that was really good. Good stuff, Robin. I like the cryptid stuff, and it, of course, included a spider to just ruin my night and haunt my dreams.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to go ahead and move into mine. But before I do, I want to remind everyone to be on the lookout because June 9th, 2019, we are going to be at the Winchester Mystery House. And soon, I believe May 1st or maybe June 1st.
Maybe.
I hate you so much. The tickets are going to go on sale. We can all purchase them at the same time. We know several of you are going to be attending at the same time we are, which is going to be really, really fun. And it's in San Jose, so you have plenty of time to plan travel arrangements and then eventually be on the lookout to buy tickets to this. One way or another, we are going to be in town. So it's going to be a fun time, and we hope you join us. And if not, no big deal. But if so, it's going to be good fun. So that's all
I
I'm
know
going
is
to say.
I gotta hit up that boba.
Yeah, we were getting suggestions on like drinks and desserts and food that's native to the San Jose region, and I'm all about that life. So I can't wait to go. It's going to be a good time. But moving on into my topic, this week I wanted to dig into something that we've had suggested multiple times, like I stated, and I've heard of this but never dove too deeply into the research on it. And I finally decided that, like, I want to give the listeners that something that they've been asking for. So, I mean, like, some of you, not all of you. And hopefully, some of you haven't heard of this at all. So you can be like, what?
What?
So, without further introduction, I present to you the Belmez faces. And for those of you who like to check our pronunciation, get fired up because it's about to get real rough. I'm not going to do too many because
I just butchered a whole bunch. So
yeah, this isn't going to be another bad pronunciation episode. But for those of you who have never heard of this before, you're probably asking, what in HE double hockey sticks are the Belmez faces? And it's like, you know when you make a piece of toast and you take it out and the part that was toasted kind of looks like Jesus? Or when you take a big poop and you look down and it kind of looks like Abraham Lincoln?
I'm just imagining Forrest Gump where they give him the towel and he wipes his face on the towel.
It's a smiley face. It's
Yeah.
a t-shirt they give him.
Oh, is it a t-shirt?
And it's yellow, yeah, and he wipes his face because he's covered in mud. I fucking love Forrest Gump. The movie's so good. Anyways, it's like that, but only scarier. So this incident that I'm about to tell you actually took place, or it's all bullshit, but there was like a good hoax. But it took place in 1971 in Spain. And what part, you ask? Well, Belmez, of course.
What?
And as a side note, the full location, the whole address is Calle Real 5, Belmez de la Moraleda, Jaén, I know I'm messing all this up, Andalusia, Spain. So it's like there's a lot going on there. I don't know. The J didn't have anything on it. The E did, though. So we're just going to go with Belmez from now on.
Jose.
Okay, so maybe. And as a side note, now that we went through that other side note, it seemed like it was kind of pointless to shorten it in the first place. I don't know why I relegated the full address to a side note. And as a side note, this is getting really meta now.
My God.
And this is like the level where we can incept our own story. Like, does everyone remember Inception? Like,
I love Inception.
How did dying in limbo kick you back up if they were still drugged and it was supposed to just drop you further? You should have dropped into like limbo squared. Okay, anyways, we're going to kick back up to the surface level of this story. Thanks, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I fucking love him.
I knew you were thinking about him. That's why I put that in my script. Anyways, so we know when and we know where. Belmez, 1971. So what about the what? Well, at this particular location, I hate you, lived a family named Pereira. Pretty sure I'm getting that right. It's pretty common name. So
Are you sure
I
you
might
don't
be
roll your
mispronouncing
R's?
it a little bit. There is no double R in here, so you do not roll it. Don't mock me because I can't roll my R's. However,
it's weird.
On August 23rd, 1971, this family noticed something very strange taking place. And Maria Gomez Pereira, thank you for having such a wonderful name, who was the mother to this family, noticed what appeared to be the image of a face starting to develop on their concrete kitchen floor. Shout out to those of you who grew up with a concrete floor. Anyways,
Did you?
We had our basement, which was concrete. And it was very, very rough if you fell down and banged your head.
Oh.
So you're basically like, you're going to lose a lot of brain cells if that happened. But then you got
That
older
explains
anyways.
so much.
I hate you.
And maybe that's why you can't roll your R's.
No, it has to do with the roof of my mouth. So anyways, they're looking at this. She's looking at this stain that's developing, which appears to be in the image of a face. And this isn't like an oops, I spilled something style stain either. It said that the mark started to form spontaneously. Nothing was like dropped on the floor. And while forming, it actually shifted positions while on the floor.
That's creepy.
And the more it developed, the more detailed the features became, and the more it began to resemble a person's face.
But it wasn't Jesus.
So it's not Jesus. None of these are religious figures, and it's been documented a fuck ton, and none of them have ever been said to be the Virgin Mary or Jesus or any of the figures that are normally associated with things just cropping up.
Okay.
So anyways, the more
now
developed...
all I can think of is crop circles now.
Why crop circles?
Because you said cropping up.
Okay. So the more it developed, the more the family began to react. And I'd like to say that they reacted appropriately. Because at first the mom was like, oh, hell no. But it's like Spain, so she was probably like, Dios mío. Which is exactly what my grandmother totally would have said.
Really?
But she would have added in some like serious profanity in Spanish that I'm not even going to repeat. But she immediately set to trying to clean the floor. She was like, this is wrong. I need to fix this. So she probably first started with soap and water because it said that she had several iterations of trying to clean this thing off. And eventually moved to like industrial strength cleaning solutions, something to get this shit off the floor.
Just knock that
And
cement out.
it
Put
is
laminate over it.
It was not coming off. And I think at this point we can all relate to a moment where you had to like try and clean a stain out of like a floor or maybe even a rug, maybe cleaning up after a pet.
I've had to clean out fucking blood out of the carpet constantly.
Blood?
Murdering people.
Oh,
It's
that
messy.
makes sense. I clean up the poop and the puke from the pets, and you clean up all the murders that we perform. But imagine doing that while the supernatural face of something was staring back at you like...
So what did it look like that made it scary?
It's a face in concrete. Like, it's not like super detail where it looks like peaceful. They just look creepy. But like, imagine trying to clean it and it's looking at you and it's like, what are you doing?
Did they take pictures?
Why are you trying to get rid of me? Don't you love me? Yeah, they took a lot of pictures, and they'll be on our Instagram.
Okay.
So suffice it to say, the cleaning did not work. And try as she may, the face just stared right back at her. And at this point, she turned over the task of ridding the home of this supernatural thing to her husband, Juan, and her son, Miguel, who also watched this phenomenon occur and develop. And I would like to think that they aided her in her attempt to scrub this face off the floor and didn't just stand there while she scrubbed on her hands and knees. But regardless, it's up to them now because her attempts didn't work because whatever it is was stronger than whatever she was trying to clean it with.
Did they try to put like tile or laminate over it?
They don't have tile or laminate, dude. Like, this is like the middle of the day. This just happened. They're not running out to the hardware store in Belmez, Spain in 1971. They're trying to fix this with what they have on hand.
Okay.
And I gotta say, like, when I was doing the story of the transported soldier, which if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend it. We talked about the guy in charge during that episode who seemed to make all the right decisions. And that's also kind of what happens here, at least at first. And the father and son combo of Juan and Miguel left the house to retrieve something, and upon returning, set to solving this situation their very own way. And they returned to the kitchen with pickaxes.
Wow.
And I shit you not, they destroyed their own kitchen floor. And they removed the entire section that this face had cropped up.
Holy crap.
They're like, nope, we're not dealing with this. And if you see something like this and it's real, it's really happening, like the first thing you might try and do is clean it. And then after that, if you're superstitious, and even if you're not, you're like, nope, this is not going to stand. And they destroyed their own kitchen floor and they took that face out. And like, they completely removed this section. So they have this basically this big hole in their floor. And I imagine they dusted off their hands and they're like, Pereira family 1, floor demons 0. And then they all did like the suck it hand chop to their crotches. God. And there was a 3-way high five. And it was this wonderful family moment. But
I'm just imagining
the vegan
from Scott
police.
Pilgrim.
Yeah. I always imagine that when I think of people high fiving. But I think what we're learning here is Spanish and Mexican people make pretty solid choices in horror situations. Like that one guy who's like, put him in jail until we figure it out. Oh, it is super creepy. Put him on a ship and get him 5,000 miles away from us. I never want to see him again. They're basically just like, take pickaxes to the floor. So realistically, like, it all seems to make sense. Like, these people are on the ball. It's like that guy in the movie Devil where he immediately realizes they're dealing with Satan because he flips a piece of toast with jam, which is, by the way, the stupidest thing I've ever seen in a goddamn movie.
Face down.
Yeah, that somehow determines they're dealing with Satan himself. I was like, man, that's a huge leap. But whatever.
That
M. Night
movie's
Shyamalan and
scary.
Ding Dong. It's not bad. It's not bad.
When you see the... Okay, never mind the spoilers. Well, no, it's an old movie.
It's the very beginning, and it's like 2008 when it came out.
But, yeah.
When you see the devil's face.
Yeah, when you see the devil's face on the screen.
So, okay, we're going to get back into this. You're probably thinking this battle is over, but it's not. The floor demons, or whatever the F this was, were not so easily dismissed. And almost immediately after their work was completed, the face reformed on a different spot.
They just got to burn the house down.
At this point in the story, I'd like to say that this story is confirmed by multiple law enforcement officers and officials, government officials in this region. But my skeptic alarm goes off with this story. But this is what's funny about this is that my skeptic alarm initially before I started investigating this was like all the theories that I had on how this could have happened naturally don't make any sense if it's moving on the ground after they pickaxe their own concrete floor.
Yeah.
That it just reappeared in a different spot. So I'm just like, okay, this is getting weird. But we'll get to some possible rational explanations closer to the end of the story. So they have a kitchen that is literally tore up from the floor up and a newly relocated face on their concrete floor. And like anything that ever happens in a small community especially, people start talking about it.
Exorcise the demons.
People are equal parts intrigued and freaked out. And the word of these faces on the floor starts to spread throughout the town until it literally reaches the mayor. And when the mayor finds out about it, the mayor finds out about it, he's like, bruh, I want this thing. And no joke,
wants it?
The mayor got some like workers together. He reached out to the family. They had asked like a local council for help. And he said that he would like to help, and they head over and explain that they're going to try and study what is going on to figure out what it is. But in order to do so, they're going to need to remove this entire piece of concrete flooring to keep it intact.
That has the face on it.
Because they don't want to destroy it. They're not going to pickaxe. They're basically going to take a giant chunk.
Like a saw and just
like out of their floor. Because they want to take it with them. So basically, it's going to be like a deeper but more professionally cut hole in their floor when they're done. And I would like to think that they helped fill the hole after this ordeal was done.
The whole ordeal was done.
I hate you so much. So they set to work in order to preserve the face, to study it, and obviously like show everyone what's going on and probably make money off of it.
I'm going to assume the face disappeared off of it.
I couldn't. No, that's a bold assumption, and no, that didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
But the family is like all about it. Like, yeah, get this crap out of here. Super creepy. There's a floor on our face and it won't go away.
Take face on our floor.
That's what I was trying to say. I'm very tired. So they get surveyors in there. They're going to excavate the space. But while they're digging up the kitchen floor, they notice something very odd.
Bones, bodies.
They start to discover, I shit you not, bones. Bones beneath the foundation of this floor. And they keep digging. And they get to about 10 feet down underneath the kitchen floor. And at this point, they have found multiple complete skeletons.
Shut up.
And a few that are missing. And again, I shit you not, their skulls. Their skulls are the only things that they're finding that are missing. So now a couple of things happen. Some worker during this, undoubtedly, and I cannot confirm this whatsoever, but I guarantee you at least one of them noped the fuck out, probably walking away saying that they are too old for this shit. And like, I can't imagine there's no way at least one person didn't do that. And next thing, the family is like, get that out of this house, which they do. And the decision is made to do a couple of things. The remains will be sent to a Catholic cemetery where they can receive last rites and be buried properly.
Salted and burned.
As a side note, I put smart move. Salting and burning them would also have been an appropriate answer. But before they send them away, the bones are going to be sent away somewhere else to be examined and carbon dated, which they are. And these results come back. And when we get to the skeptical explanations later, no one ever accounts for the bones they found underneath the house. They're just like, yeah, shit happens. Those bones turned out to be scientifically proven through carbon dating around 700 years old. They had been there for 7 centuries.
How does that happen?
Don't know. Like, people lost track of where a grave was, or it was like not marked. But for anyone who has studied the history of Spain for 20 minutes by Googling Spain in 1250, knows there was a lot of warring going on between Muslims and Christians. They were called the Crusades. And even when the Crusades weren't like officially going on, they were still fighting. And basically, whoever was in charge of a specific region at the time, if you belonged to the other group, you had a few choices. You could convert, you could get the fuck out, or you could die because they would kill you. So it's hard to tell who these people were. And like exactly the scenario which put them in the ground where they were found later. But the bodies had been there for a very, very long time, which does beg the question of why the faces didn't appear sooner. And that's one of the things that the skeptic in me says, like, why wasn't this phenomenon? Like, did it trigger at 700 years where they all just woke up? But who knows? But did I just say faces? I did. Was I referring to the face that popped back up? No, I'm referring to the ones that are about to pop up. And at this point, I can confirm that the mayor did fix the floor and the giant hole in it. They basically gave him a brand new concrete floor. Super nice of them. And a couple of weeks go by. And guess what happens?
More faces?
Multiple faces start to appear on the floor. But not permanently this time. They would fade in, show up, get more and more detail, then start to fade away. And then a new face would show up. A new face, new features in a different place on the floor.
That's so weird.
And it said that this started happening over the course of hours. Like, they would fade in and fade out over the course of hours, which is insane if you really think about it. Like, all types of faces, like men and women and children, which makes the idea of who was in that grave even sadder.
Yeah.
So at this point, people are freaking out again. And this time the gossip does not stay local. Like, it blows up. It goes international. And multiple countries catch wind of what is going on, and shit basically gets real. And the Pereira family stays in their home. But now lots of people want to come. I have no idea if they made money off of this. I am 100% sure they did. But people are legitimately making pilgrimages.
You're not sure, but you're 100% sure?
I can't confirm it, but my brain tells me I'm 100% sure they made money. But people are making pilgrimages. So by Easter of 1972, which is less than a year since it started, people are coming to the house to see the faces. And like I said in all my research, no one ever claimed that these faces were of religious figures. People just want to see this. And not just religious people, like scientists want to see it, and documentarians.
And they did.
They all wanted to see it, and they all did see it because they were just like, cool, come and check it out. People who thought it was bullshit, skeptics, they went to see it, and they all wanted to get a peek, and they're like, come and check it out. Take whatever tests you want. We don't care. And one such individual who gets involved is a man named Dr. Hans Bender.
Dr. Drake Ramore.
I hate you so much. With a name like Hans and Bender rolled together, I can't believe you went with a Friends reference. But with a name like Hans, you obviously know he's German, and he's a paranormal
and he's
investigator.
A bad guy. And he's there to take over Rivendell.
No, he's upset because he got dropped off the 92nd floor of Nakatomi Tower. He's a paranormal investigator, and he wants to know what is going on. Oh, R.I.P. Alan Rickman. Always.
I was going to say that.
I beat you to it. So they do a bunch of studying, basically. We're at the point now where this is happening. People are seeing it. Everyone wants to take a test in one way, shape, or form. And one of the skeptical researchers decides to take a sample of the floor and send it away. It's a government facility that is sent away to.
Give it away now.
I hate you so. Everything has to be a song lyric with you. So they send this stuff away to be studied by like a government research center, and it's tested for evidence of a few things, including dyes, paint, pigment of any kind, any sort of chemical that could have caused a reaction to the
for all of it.
concrete. And the results come back. And when results come back in other studies I'm going to tell you about, they're marked inconclusive, and people make
Big
conclusions
deals out of it.
based off of inconclusive research. This set of research that was sent away was sent back as conclusive. Like, no, this shit's legit. And what was sent back was, it just basically said there was absolutely no alterations of any kind made to the floor, at least that they can detect. So this is like 1972. And this thing is going to get studied all the way up until today. Like, people are still studying this shit. So Hans...
Are they really?
They really are. And we'll get there. Hans and his film crew decide to bump things up a notch. So they throw some onions, bell pepper, and celery at the floor and yell, BAM!
Kick it up another notch.
Which is an Emerald joke. I'm glad that you got that. Because those three items in Cajun cooking are called the Holy Trinity, which is like almost appropriate because of faces that aren't... You know what? Fuck you. I don't have to explain my jokes. But anyways...
Sure, 'cause I don't get it.
It is decided that they are going to seal off the kitchen. That's how they're really going to bump things up a notch. People are saying, like, someone's clearly hoaxing this. We don't know exactly how. So they say, we're going to seal up the kitchen and see what happens. And they record them sealing up the kitchen for evidence. They close up the door to the kitchen and all the windows leading to the room. And they then seal them with wax and leave it empty for 3 months. I am a little skeptical about sealing it with wax because you can melt wax to reseal something.
Yeah.
I'm like, they should have just caulked it. You know what I mean? Like, good caulk never hurt anyone, but they don't. They use wax.
For those young people that don't know what caulk is, it's that white shit in your bathtub that like seals the water line.
Or around windows, stuff like that. It's just something that you can seal something with. It's semi-permanent. It's like rubbery, so it's going to come off sooner or later.
CAULK,
yes.
right?
Anyways, they do leave it alone for 3 months, and they wait. They play the waiting game. And they probably get bored and play Hungry Hungry Hippos instead. Side note, that's a Simpsons reference. Someone better have gotten that. I'm talking to you, Garrett. They open the door. Tim, yeah. Oh, yeah, Tim better have fucking gotten that too. Anyways, they open the door after 3 months, and the faces have moved and multiplied. Again, this is going to be on our Instagram. It's like they're in groups at this point. It is super creepy. There's multiple faces in so many different spots. It's just super bizarre. And, like, again, check out our Instagram. It's hard to describe this, but let's start talking possible explanations of this phenomena and what's going on. So, a man named Luis Ruiz Noguez, I'm sure I butchered your last name at least, published an article 20 years after the fact. So this came out in the 90s regarding this particular incident. And he postulates, which means theorize, that there must have been essentially some homemade concoction using the following: zinc, lead, and chromium to cause these faces to appear. He bases that hypothesis off of the results that came back from the government institution that ran this shit, that sent back the conclusive results that nothing was done to alter the concrete. Because he's looking at things that might be elevated in the concrete sample that could cause some form of distortion.
All right.
So he's saying there's got to be a way that this happened, and this must have been done to make these faces appear. And basically, like every skeptic I'm about to tell you about, he says, like, I have this theory that you can use these things in certain scenarios to cause faces to appear. Therefore, this is solved. They're full of shit.
I've got a theory that it's a demon. A dancing demon.
Is this Buffy?
No, something isn't right there. Yeah.
I hate you so much. I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
There's another skeptic named Manuel Martin Serrano. Thank you so much for having a simple name. Who wrote a study that examined, and I really like this, he examined the sociological element behind the occurrence, where he basically interviewed the people around them and the society and the government who were perpetuating basically the tourism aspect of this, and how the community would all perpetrate a hoax together for financial gain, whether like consciously or subconsciously. Yeah. And it's really bizarre, and it's also like kind of fascinating, but he basically takes all that information and says like, and based off of all this research I did, even though I literally didn't name any of the people I interviewed, I kept them all anonymous, I can officially call it a hoax, which is just lazy writing. Let's be real, folks. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that people could like unspokenly make some shit up to gain money. You know, like Lizard Man of South Carolina, ring a bell? That whole thing stinks to high heaven. So, but there are more skeptics, and it's going to keep going. One man named Jose Luis Jordan, it has a little thing over the A, I don't know if I said that right, because it can't be as simple as Jose Luis Jordan, claims that he's basically solved it by stating that if someone could have gotten their hands on a German product that is intended to remove concrete stains, ironically to remove the things that it causes, it could have caused these faces. And he states in his theory, which comes like 20 years later, that this product could be found in any drugstore. And I call bullshit on that personally, because I'll go to a drugstore right now and I bet they don't have it. So without knowing if the drugstores nearby had this shit in 1971, or if they had gone somewhere to purchase it, without doing any of that research, he claims that he's cracked it. So there's another one. And this skeptic claims that through infrared photography, he can see evidence that paintbrushes were used. I did so much digging and I couldn't find any of these infrared photographs, just the conclusions that they drew from pictures they won't show you. And for skeptics trying to disprove something, that's pretty shaky research. So it's getting kind of annoying how many people are writing something or trying to publish something for notoriety or for financial gain to say that they've cracked it and to call people full of shit. Because let's be real, I'm pretty skeptical about this whole thing.
Do they still have any slabs that have the faces on them?
They still appear. Like,
what?
And people still don't know why. So I don't know what the last known sighting is, but we're going to keep going on this chronological timeline soon. We're going to get back on this. Most of this stuff is coming in the 80s and the 90s, all these skeptics popping up. What is very interesting about all these skeptics is they only account for a part of the explanation on how this could occur. Like I said, they never talk about the bones, the fact that those bones are 700 years old. They basically just say this is all a coincidence.
It makes me think that it was like a grave people forgot about, and then it's the spirits of the people that got built over. Just like, hey, look at us.
They're just popping up like, yo, dog. And maybe there was a rug there and they've been doing it for centuries. Who the fuck knows?
Oh,
it's a concrete floor. It's cold. But these skeptics would include the results of that chemical analysis that stated that no product was used in the concrete, but it's mainly to discount the findings and sometimes even just outright claim that they were forged, which is super annoying. It's like they bring it up like this shit has to clearly be fake. And they only state their hypothesis and that it somehow must not have been detected during this like test. And other skeptics were allowed to take their own test. They're like, they'd come in, there'd be faces, and they said, like, take whatever you want. And their test would come back inconclusive. But they'd still draw conclusions that support their hypothesis based off of their inconclusive test results, which as a scientist that I'm not, really pisses me off. Because the best science that was done on this thing was the stuff that kind of confirmed that they don't know what the hell is going on. So it's like, I'm looking for a reason to not believe this, and all these other skeptics doing these tests are just letting me down. And what I personally find very interesting as a person who is a skeptic is that all of these people who wrote books or published papers regarding their study have two specific things in common. They all claim to have solved it and claim that it was a hoax while discounting the whole sealed off room and the faces moving without anyone entering it. No one touches that. No one tries to say someone went in there. They just act like that experiment never happened. And two, and most interesting of all to me, all of their studies only found traces of their own hypothesis. If you say it was chemical agent A and I say it was chemical agent B and we both test the same sample, and when we get our results back, my sample confirms it was chemical agent B, your sample confirms it was chemical agent A, but they don't show the other person's hypothesis, it means your research is inconsistent and inconclusive and honestly, probably fucking fake.
Yeah.
Because all these people only show results based off of what they already thought was happening, but no one, it's not like 3 or 4 different skeptics who are like, we all found this same thing.
Right. It just seems like
there's so many different explanations for it
yeah.
where I'm just like, I'm so annoyed by how sketchy the skeptics are in this case. So as recently as 2014, so 5 years ago, a forensic criminalist conducted experiments using a bunch of gathered data, including the official stuff and unofficial stuff from other skeptics. And he took all that and he tried to replicate the results of what was in the kitchen in the first place, which just makes the most sense. It's so annoying that no one tried to do this sooner. Like, hasn't anyone ever watched Mythbusters?
I love Mythbusters.
You test something by first doing it the way the myth says it was done, then replicating the results to see if it's even plausible or possible, but they just lied about how it was done, you know? And that's basically what this guy tries to do. And he tried literally all of these theories in order to try and create a face on concrete with the same composition as that of the Pereira's floor. And like, by the way, this dude that's conducting these experiments, he's fucking legit. He was the director of the Spanish Institute of Applied Criminalistics. The director. And he won the European Police Cross of Honor. Not just Spain, the entire European Police Cross of Honor. Side note, I don't know what that award is. Sounds pretty nice though. After all of his tests, which according to Wikipedia, were tests using concrete solvents, hydrochloric acid, silver nitrate, and other various theorized agents for doing this. He declared all of his tests were, quote, failures.
Wow.
His final statement on the matter before he said he would not touch it again was, quote, the words summarizing my opinion are absolute bewilderment. He had no clue. Couldn't even replicate what was going on. All the things he tested that everyone said, like, that must be how they did it, he couldn't even replicate it with those things.
That's crazy.
And this dude is legit. He has credentials. So it's like, that's kind of nuts. And then there's this other group of skeptics. And I love this group.
The ones that aren't backed up by any...
They're skeptics and they're crazy.
Okay.
So we're going to get to this. They don't believe these faces appeared because of spirits or ghosts or poltergeists or demons. There's this contingent of skeptics who believe firmly that this is a result of a phenomenon known as thoughtography.
What?
Or thoughtography, however you want to say it, which, like it sounds,
is it all about that hoe over there?
basically means you have the psychokinetic ability to cast an image from your brain onto a surface. And these folks are convinced that's what was going on here.
So not THOT, it's THOUGHT.
No, not thought. It wasn't a bunch of twerking going on that just had these faces pop up like, damn! No.
Just a bunch of booties.
Someone in their's brain was putting these images on the concrete through like,
okay, that's ridiculous.
But this is what's funny about this group of skeptics. They performed research to try and prove their theory, which is so fucking funny because the Pereira family is basically everyone that shows up. It doesn't matter what you say. You're like, I think you're full of shit, and this is why. I apologize. There is a mosquito in the studio / office that Robin...
It's not just a regular mosquito.
It's a giant mosquito.
It's giant, like quarter size.
It terrified Robin. She threw a CD case at my laptop and was able to murder it, and my laptop survived.
You know, all I'm thinking about now is like, Ninja Star. Ugh.
That's pretty much what she just did to my laptop. I was like, you gonna look for something to kill it? She picked it up. Looked at it. She could have just stabbed it with the corner, but she fucking like, I'd say this is about 1.5 feet. She threw the CD case 1.5 feet directly at my laptop. Like, die. So this is clearly one of the spirits of the Belmez faces coming back to be like, I was about to tell you what happened and then you murdered me.
Nightmare of you saved our lives.
So, thoughtography. That's what we were talking about. Someone involved in this family was projecting this. And here's the thing. They could have been doing it consciously or subconsciously. Because as everyone who's ever seen a superhero movie knows, sometimes you don't have control of your powers. And you probably like fall into that whole thing where it's like, this is a curse, not a gift. Unless you watch Shazam, which is actually a pretty good movie.
Shazam!
They don't fall into that superhero trope where it's like they're not enjoying these amazing powers when they get them. That shit never happens in that movie. It's actually really fun. Anyways. They're trying to figure out who it is, and through their experiments, they all these different groups point the finger at Maria. They're like, it is Maria. They think she has this ability. I hate you so much. And they even conducted experiments with Maria to prove their theory. And multiple groups that studied these faces noted two things similar across all of their research. And this is kind of creepy, but we're going to discount this. Maria was present every time the faces appeared, which they thought was definitely a sign that it was pointing at her. And two, the faces that appeared reflected the same facial expression she had at the time they started to appear.
Whoa.
Multiple groups noted that, and I think that's super cool. And they would also remove Maria from the home for periods of time as like a control group. And when they'd remove her, it stated that like when they studied it, activity never happened when she wasn't in the home. So at this point, you're thinking like, that tricky Maria. But that said, other folks that were studying this claimed that the faces would appear supposedly without her there. Like even other skeptics who were saying like, oh, they're faking it this way. Like she wasn't there when it was happening. So it's like all these things, regardless of how crazy they are, kind of like contradict each other. And the funny thing about the thoughtography theory is that this was eventually proved incorrect 30 years after the fact, because on February 3rd, 2004, Maria died at 85 years young. And the faces kept appearing after her death.
She's just haunting the house now.
Might be. She still has this ability and she's just haunting the house. Now, what I will say with my skeptical brain is this. If you really want to test whether or not there is a hoax still going on, just move the family out of the home and put them somewhere else. Like put an armed guard on the house 24/7 to make sure no one goes in. No waxed seals. Like make sure no one goes in and check it at regular intervals. Take pictures, whatever you need to do, and just check and see whether or not anything changes. That said, this has been a consistent phenomenon for almost 5 decades now. 1971. It's 2019 and they're still talking about it. And the attempts to debunk it have all had lazy, shaky science associated with it. And I want an answer, and I want it done correctly. If I want to say I don't believe in something, I want someone to study it enough where I can be like, I'm going to point to this. Because anytime I look at research on this thing, where I'm like, I'm going to point to this as something where it's probably fake, which I will do when I study things, it's all just inconsistent. And don't send someone who's intent on proving their own hypothesis, regardless of the results of their testing. And don't send someone who's going there to only test what they think, because they're just going to find what they think is true. That's how most people operate. Send someone who's actually going to test the shit out of this and find out what's going on. So someone, I'm just putting this out there, it's just a call to all of you listeners, whoever knows whoever has connections, someone needs to call up Adam Savage and Jamie Heineman and tell them to go get Cary Grant and Tori and send them to Spain for a whole year. And I'm serious, a year. I want them to blog the shit out of this. I want live cams and like keep everyone else away, get an armed guard. I want to see like people with AK-47s, even though I know they have better guns in Spain, surrounding this house and making sure no one else can come in there. And I guarantee you after a year, we will know whether or not this is real or not. That said, to wrap up, my theory for what this is, I think, scientifically speaking, it is a gateway for spirits to cross between worlds with absolutely no proof. And despite trying to avoid drawing attention to it, because I think most spirits don't want to draw attention to themselves, when they pass through this gateway between worlds, they leave an impression upon the doorway in our world of what they once looked like. And I think the faces everyone sees that are like so bizarre, it's just they're like, it's the day-to-day face of someone who's walking through any other doorway.
Resting bitch face?
It's just resting bitch face. Or it's all bullshit, and they've just been keeping it going since 1971. But honestly, like, who knows? Send us there and we'll find out.
There has to be a reason there were bones under there.
We will figure this out. We will science the shit out of this. We're going to make this our goal for 5,000 patrons, because I don't know how much it costs to go to Spain. But that, my friend, is the story of the Belmez faces.
Cool.
So there's a lot to this. I used to think that there wasn't enough to cover a full topic, or I'd have to group it with something else. But the more I dug into it and the more I started looking at the research of the skeptics, I started being like, wow, like this is really shitty research. Like if it's so obviously fake, how come they can't prove it's fake so quickly? And just so many of them, I think, got so excited to just publish something and say like, it's disproved 100% for sure. And I see that all the time in my research when I'm looking for people to disprove stuff.
Yeah.
They find a possibility that something could be fake and they basically say this is debunked, which is just the laziest form of skepticism. It's cynicism with just like a tiny bit of research behind it. So Belmez faces, I don't know what's going on there. And any of you who might have actually seen them, hit us up. Let us know.
I want to see some pictures.
I'm going to post some pictures on our Instagram, and all of you who are listening to this, they should already be there. I am back at work right now, so I'm not sure if I got these up before I went to work, but I promise you they will be up the Tuesday this episode comes out, which is in 4 hours.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so fun stuff. Thought this was a good episode. Episode 70, one past the sex number. We have 98 more episodes after this one to go before episode 169, where it can be super stupid all over again. So, yeah.
Cool.
Good stuff.
All right.
I just said good stuff after I went, which is kind of self-serving, but I enjoyed this one. So shout out to everyone who suggested we do the Belmez faces. You are the true MVPs. And
shout out to all you Tonko fans out there. This is your episode.
So I think that's just about everything that we have for this episode. If you folks want to reach out to us with your stories, you can. Storytime@scarish.com is our email address. Scarish.com is our website. Click on contact us. You can send it there. Facebook.com/ScarishPodcast. @ScarishPod is Twitter. Instagram is @ScarishPodcast. If you want to join our communities, our Facebook page also has a group called the Scary Spooky Friends group. And we also have a Discord server, which is over 200 people now. It's a great source of memes, even if you're not...
So many memes.
Even if you're not looking for scary memes, we have a channel literally called Not So Scary Memes.
Is it Not So Spooky?
Scary or Spooky? I forget which.
I think it's Not So Spooky memes.
They're just hilarious. And like you can share them with all your friends.
There's dad jokes. So...
Be the meme king or queen or other, and they will just be like, where do you get all this shit from? And then you can tell them about our podcast.
All the dad jokes in our Discord have
really
made me
good.
an honorary member of the dad joke club at work. So thank you.
I can't believe you achieved that. So good stuff. Thank you so much for listening, folks. Robin, if anyone wanted to contribute to us financially, how could they do so?
If you go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast, we have monthly donation system there. Starts at $1 all the way up to whatever you want. And there are physical merch tiers where I make badges and I'll make stickers every once in a while and I'll mail them out to everyone, which is awesome. I have a lot of fun designing those. And then there's coffee, ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast. And that is one-time donations. And all those donations help us upgrade our studio setup. And if you guys have watched our YouTube videos from when we first started, you'll see not only has my hair gotten longer, it's getting like a nice long length, but our video quality has definitely gotten a lot better. The way we stream has gotten a lot better, and it's because of the help that you guys give us. We can't do it without you.
It's 100% true. So thank you to everyone who donates, everyone who's a Patreon now or previously or in the future, and everyone who rates and reviews us. Go to iTunes if you already haven't. We appreciate all those reviews. We read literally every single one of them. So thank you so much to all you folks out there.
Our patrons, you guys are so freaking awesome. We owe you. Like, you guys are awesome. Straight to my heart. The feels.
Right on. I think that's just about everything we got. So, Robin, why don't you sign us out?
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.